I'm Mike Hayden. I was the former director of the CIA and NSA. If there's another term for President Trump, I don't know what happens to America. Truth is really important, but especially in intelligence. President Trump doesn't care about facts. President Trump doesn't care about the truth. He doesn't listen to his experts. The FBI says white nationalism is a real problem, and the FBI wants to do something about it, but the president doesn't want to talk about that. He doesn't keep the country safe. It's unbelievable. I was 40 years in the military, okay? Alliances are wonderful. Alliances are win-win. And now I don't know what's happening to our alliances. I mean it. If Trump gives another term, I think many alliances will be gone and America will be alone. And that's a real problem. I absolutely disagree with some of Biden's policies. But that's not important. What's important is the United States, and I'm supporting Joe Biden. Biden is a good man. Donald Trump is not.
The Forum is Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. until 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, covering topics from local, national, and everything in between. It may not be what you expect to hear, but we will definitely give you what you need to know. That's The Forum. There's liberal news, there's conservative news, and then there's the truth. Join us for the truth. Good morning. Welcome to the program. Today is Wednesday, October 7th, 2020. There's a lot to discuss today. In about 15 or so minutes, we're going to be speaking with the chair of the City of Milwaukee Election Commission, Stephanie Findley, so we can get necessary updates on how things are going at the Election Commission as far as the number of absentee ballots that have been returned, the polling locations, and also the recent news that Miller Park and the Fiserv Forum will not be early voting locations. So I'm looking forward to that conversation with Chairwoman Findley. Also, the vice presidential debate is tonight, where a lot of people are on edge because at least 11 people in the president's inner circle have tested positive for coronavirus, and Mike Pence has been in the vicinity of the president, we believe, since the president's diagnosis, but we are not sure when the president was actually exposed and for how long he has been contagious. And so both parties, Kamala Harris's camp and also Mike Pence's camp, agreed to these plexiglass shields covering both debaters, because we know that the risks are incredibly high. And the last thing we need is the vice presidential candidates to be exposed, let alone if Kamala Harris exposes Joe Biden. And we're talking about a real crisis here in the United States. And so Pence then backtracked on his agreement, saying he doesn't want the plexiglass shield. Now, the candidates are going to be socially distanced. They're going to be 12 feet apart instead of the usual 6. And let me just throw this in here as well. 6 feet apart was just, I think, like a standard accepted number of feet to be socially distanced. We know that the coronavirus can spread through aerosol, and it can spread in upwards of 30 feet. So where they came up with 6 feet, I'm not sure, but it is what it is. So Pence agreed to have the plexiglass, then he didn't want it. And he didn't give any reasons as to why he didn't want it, but I'm assuming it's because of this frighteningly obstinate, stubborn unwillingness to believe science, and that the Republicans, especially those in Trump's orbit, don't want to appear weak or afraid of the coronavirus. And they actually should appear afraid of the coronavirus, because the human body does not naturally produce an immunity to this virus. And so if Pence, the optics of Pence having the plexiglass shield makes him look weak, which is, you can't run a country like this. And so in the last probably 12 hours, Pence did agree to have the plexiglass shield up. So the vice presidential debate, I don't know why I can't say that this morning. That is going to be taking place at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. And of course, I will encourage everybody to watch it, because we are going to be covering it extensively on tomorrow's program. So that'll be tomorrow. We'll talk about the vice presidential debate and whatever happens with the Milwaukee County District Attorney's decision to charge or not charge Officer Joseph Mensah of the Wauwatosa Police Department. A lot of people are on edge, as some of you already know, via posts on social media. The Wisconsin National Guard is on standby. They're being staged at Wisconsin State Fair Park, which is only maybe 4 or 5 minutes away from the suburb of Wauwatosa. But also, the National Guard has been staged in and around State Fair Park since July. So it's not like they're being staged specifically for any expected outbreak of violence this evening. And I hope that's not the case. I hope that there are peaceful protests, but don't we always say that? You never know what the outcome is going to be. And also, we don't know if the district attorney has been privy to information that the public is not. And maybe there is a charging decision. I don't know. It's too hard to predict things these days. So we're on edge because of that. The president is holding the election hostage. He made some commentary yesterday, essentially saying that there will be no more talks on your second $1,200 stimulus check, no additional resources for businesses. And this is, I'm really pained by this, because the president is trying to get Americans to take him at his word that if you reelect him, then they're going to pass the stimulus. He's lying. He's doing everything he possibly can to mitigate the fact that he is down double digits in every major poll. I'm still concerned about Florida, but we're always concerned about Florida a little bit. Don't fall for that, please. Oh, once I get reelected, we're going to get to work on the stimulus bill. Once the election is over, Congress is not even in session. So there's that whole thing. There's also a tweet storm that he has been going on, and I don't want to wish ill on anybody. Oh, it hurts to say that. Look, I'm a decent person. I think most of the time I try to be, but Donald Trump has made so many of our lives unsafe, and he has this incredible unwillingness to even care. Even his wife, remember when she went to go visit the children at the camps? I shouldn't call them camps, at the prisons at the border. And she had that writing on the back of her jacket, "I don't care, why should you?" or something to that effect. They just don't care. And I think that with the tweet storm he went on in the last 12 hours, I think the president is really, really sick. And he will refuse medical treatment because I'm assuming the kind of medical treatment that he will need because of his COVID-19 diagnosis and his advanced age and his comorbidities, the president needs to be in the hospital, but he's not. And so they're pumping him full of drugs, which we know that some of the experimental treatments that you and I can't get. We can't get the treatment the president is getting. There's incredible side effects. The reason why those treatments he is getting have not been approved is because of the side effects. And the thing about side effects, it's one thing if you give experimental treatments to people that are healthy. It's another thing if you give these experimental treatments to people that have comorbidities and have advanced age. So he is at extremely high risk. And I think he's really, really sick. All of our problems are not solved if Donald Trump is hyped up on medication and is getting sicker and is having major side effects. Nobody wins in that scenario because he can make a series of erratic decisions that can put every single American life in jeopardy, not just here, but also overseas. Very concerned about that. Had a conversation with a good friend of mine who's a business owner in the city of Milwaukee, and there is a new executive order set to take place starting tomorrow, which is essentially shuttering all businesses once again because of the spike in coronavirus cases in the state of Wisconsin. And businesses will only be allowed to operate at 25% capacity. And depending upon what kind of business that you have, that is not profitable. By you opening your doors, you are going to lose money. If you keep your doors closed because the permitted 25% capacity is all that the state is offering you, you're going to lose money either way, whether you stay closed or whether you open at 25% capacity. There are a number of places and establishments, I can't speak for the rest of the state, but in southeastern Wisconsin, they were in this incredible rush to open, and that was led by the Republicans. The Republicans need to own this, and we're going to make sure that they do, not just now, but pretty much forever. Their unwillingness to even understand. We could have had a fall. I think we lost the summer because of the coronavirus. We could have had a fall, but we're not going to have a fall. Now we got flu season. Now we got the winter coming. The entire year of 2020 has essentially been shot. And my year started off so good. It started off so, like the weekend of January 24th. So like 3 weeks into the year 2020, because I had high hopes for 2020. It was an election year. We were going to elect. I'm not sure if we knew at that time because we had not yet started our Democratic primaries, but I was excited. I went to Vegas. A lot of folks didn't know that. In fact, I was in Vegas and I was still working on a number of campaigns and elections for the April election, but I was in my hotel room in Vegas. Y'all didn't know that, but you know now. I went to go see Dave Chappelle in March. So my first couple months of the year were great. Then the Rona hit and, well, here we are. Good morning, everybody. Vanessa G, good morning. Tutu Reeves, good morning. Margaret Stewart, good morning, Sherwin. You are getting really good at this YouTube virtual monologue thing. Kudos to you, sir. Thank you, Margaret. I'm self-taught. I learned how to do this on my own. I even can play stuff in the background. I had a little commercial that played this morning. Mary Braun, good morning. G. Collins, good morning to you and everyone. Tammy Reed, good morning. Karen Siegler, good morning, everyone. Benita Jones, good morning. Lisa Miller, good morning. And I believe that we have a couple of guests. Here we go. Is that Stephanie Findley joining us in the chat? City of Milwaukee Election Commissioner Stephanie Findley. For some reason, I don't see you, Stephanie, but I'm assuming that you're there. Can you hear me, Stephanie?
I am here, and let me turn on my video, Sherwin.
We want to see. There she is. Are you in your car?
I am. Don't take it to my head.
No, that's okay. We're glad you could join us. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. You know, we have a lot of questions for you. And as you can imagine, the people in this city are a bit concerned. We just recently found out that Fiserv Forum and Miller Park are not going to be early voting locations. Is that going to do anything to the election day plans for the city of Milwaukee?
No, there is not. We still have the 13 other sites available for individuals to go and early vote in. Part of the reason why we decided not to use Pfizer form and Miller Park was due to lawsuit challenges. And so instead of having to deal with any of that, we decided to just stick with the plan that we had already implemented, because then people would all be up in arms, particularly, different political parties about how it's unfair. And so we didn't want any of that. But can I tell you, you look great.
Thank you,
I'm
Stephanie.
loving this beard. This is
You
like
like
so
that?
and everything.
Stephanie, can we not get distracted by my beauty? Can we just Lord have mercy. Thank you, Stephanie.
Like,
You look good too. Thank you.
you looking like a mature, like seasoned, and he looking good, y'all. Go ahead, Sharwin.
Thank you, Stephanie. If I could blush, I would be blushing right now. But I'm going to get back to the fact of the matter, because we do have an election coming up, Madam Chair. But thank you. Are you guys going to be able? Don't get me distracted. Are you guys going to be able to start processing mail-in ballots ahead of November 3rd? Because the concern is the number of people that are voting by mail, and it's going to take an additional amount of time to count those ballots that come in by mail. Will you guys be able to start processing those ahead of November 3rd, or is November 3rd the date?
No, November 3rd is the date. We can't process any ballots prior to election day. And so we have 12 processors, voting machines that we have at our central count warehouse that is prepared to do the counting for the early voter and absentee ballots that are coming in right now.
So we've heard
which is more than what we generally have. We usually only have 6. And so this election, we will have 12. And so for those of you who are out there and you are concerned about the counting of the ballots on election day, we still need 250 people to assist us at central count. So we want to have 250 people per shift. So that's a total of 500 people. So we still need some central count helpers. So if you are available, please go online and submit the application to come and help us process those ballots on election day.
We absolutely will help you in getting the necessary people that you need to help process those ballots. My other question is, so some ballots are going to arrive via mail. They would have been postmarked by the election day or before, but what if mail-in ballots come, say, November 4th, 5th, or 6th, days after the election? Will those ballots be processed and counted as well?
According to this latest court case, they have to be postmarked by, I think, election day, 8 o'clock or something to that degree. I am hoping that instead of mailing them, that individuals will take those ballots to the drop-off box around the city. We have drop-off boxes. Matter of fact, I completed my absentee ballot on Monday and dropped it off yesterday at the Capitol Library. Just walked up to it, had my witness it, and dropped it in the box. So there is drop boxes at each Milwaukee Public Library and outside of City Hall on Market Street. But what people are doing, because people are so concerned, they're walking their ballots inside of the election commission on the 5th floor and just like, nope, I don't want to chance it. I want to put it in someone's hands. Here you go. So they are doing that as well.
Stephanie, as the chair of the City Election Commission, do you have a preferred way that people should vote? Do you prefer they deliver their ballot in person, use the drop box, vote early starting October 20th, or vote on election day proper on November 3rd? Do you have a preferred way?
No, I do not have a preferred way. I want it to be based on each individual. But what is their preferred way to vote? I chose to vote absentee. This time around, I generally, for myself, prefer to go in, but because of the pandemic, I don't want to be out there like that. I want to continue to be physically distanced from other people and keep myself safe as possible. So if those individuals make sure you call and send in your absentee ballot application to receive one if you want to receive it that way, or early voting starts on October 20th.
We saw what happened on April 7th, which was by all accounts a complete disaster. What can we do other than have, the additional polling locations open? I believe that there's going to be a tremendous turnout on November 3rd, and the social distancing, I'm assuming, will still be enforced. Those lines could potentially be really, really long because April is typically a low turnout election. November is going to be much larger. Any advice that you will give to folks who are content on voting on election day? Is there any special preparations that they should make to be in line for a very long time?
Well, my preparations for those who choose to vote on election day is to make sure you pace yourself. If you have health challenges and you need your medication, make sure you bring your medication. If you need a snack, make sure you bring a snack because we don't know how long you will be in line. Make sure you bring water. If you need a chair, bring a folding chair. I'm trying to make sure that we make this as comfortable as possible for people to cast their vote on election day. And so that means that if you need to bring your bag full of goodies, a folding chair, so that you can be comfortable in the process of doing that, please do that.
Stephanie, we're going to have a lot of people that I believe are going to be voting for the first time because finally some people are waking up just based upon the conditions of our country right now. Can you do a quick thing on electioneering? Because there's going to be people that are going to have their Biden signs, Biden t-shirts, trying to rile people up, and maybe even the Republicans as well. Can you just give us a little quick synopsis on like that stuff is not allowed at and in the polling location, having candidate literature, et cetera?
Oh, absolutely. Within 100 feet of the polling location door, you have to be away from. And if you have any buttons or T-shirts on election day, you need to take your T-shirt off and turn it around because you will not be able to enter the polling location with candidate paraphernalia on as well. And so we take that very seriously because you cannot go into the locations representing or campaigning for a particular candidate. This is a neutral, transparent process. And so we're asking no matter who you vote for, vote, but you cannot come in there wearing your candidate's material.
Stephanie, are you concerned about these poll watchers, like not official people, but people that want to monitor the election and maybe they're from Milwaukee, maybe they're from other communities? Is there any preparation that you all are making? And it might just be a bunch of urban legend and rumor that all these people are going to descend on polling locations because they want to be on the lookout for voter fraud. Is there any precautions you all are taking to prepare for that scenario?
Well, anyone who knows me and those who come into this city knows that I do not tolerate people trying to intimidate people as they come in to watch poll workers. And we train our chief inspectors on what a poll watcher can and cannot do, even to where they are positioned inside of the polling location. And so there are certain behaviors they have to have, and those that they send here, they generally know that about me and the Election Commission and what they can and cannot do. I'm not opposed to having someone arrested for inappropriate behavior inside of a polling location. If you're considering yourself a poll watcher and you're displaying bad behavior or just acting inappropriate inside the polling location, they will be asked to leave. And if they do not, they will be removed via law enforcement.
Good. I think that's going to give us a higher level of confidence that you guys are aware of that situation. Before I let you go, where do people go? Is there a phone number or a website that you can provide if people want to be an election worker to help at Central Count on election evening?
Yes, the website is milwaukee.gov/elections. And on there you will have, it will be a application that you can submit. It'll go right to the election commission. We have about 21 um, Zoom trainings coming up. So you have to get in on one of those trainings online in order to participate. I believe we have about 10 of those trainings that are in person because, not everyone has access to a computer, and we want to be sure that everyone who wants to work at the polls, work at Central Crown, work at early voting has the opportunity to receive the kind of training that they need in order to be effective on during early voting or on election day. There was another question you asked me.
If it comes to you, just text it to me and we'll get it figured out. Was it about my beard? Was it how I keep it so pretty and white? Was it no? Thank you, Stephanie. I appreciate it. I'm going to share the link to the Election Commission website in case people are interested in wanting
And then
to
let me
sign up.
leave the phone number too, 286-VOTE. 286-VOTE for those. If that was the other question as to if there's a number for you to call if you want to work. So please call 286-VOTE.
Dr. Stephanie Findley, Chair of the City of Milwaukee Election Commission, thank you so much for taking the time. And we very well may have another conversation between now and Election Day, but I thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, Sherwin. You have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys. So there was Stephanie Findley, Chairwoman of the City of Milwaukee Election Commission. So you know what? That gives me a little bit of relief to know that the Election Commission is going to be mindful of people. And I don't expect people to come to the City of Milwaukee to do this election intimidation, voter intimidation. I don't expect that because there have been a number of presidential elections where the right has threatened to do so. And they've never showed up because I think they know. And haven't we seen that they're all talk? And I'm not challenging anybody because I guess if there's a time to call anybody on their bluff, it would be now. That also leads me to a story that we have that is of tremendous concern for me, and I want it to be of concern for you. The president has essentially for 4 years questioned the integrity of the American electoral process. He didn't think he was going to win in November of 2016. None of us thought he was going to win. Very few people thought Donald Trump was going to be successful. More importantly, Donald Trump didn't think he was going to be successful in that he didn't even have a speech prepared, a victory speech. When he walked out on that stage after the results were essentially final, he looked like a deer in the headlights because he knew he had a problem. He ran for president to get the additional publicity, to get the additional fame, to rebrand himself so that he could get out of debt. So he could take the new notoriety that he got from running for president and spin that into a media network. And he made that abundantly clear. He really didn't have any interest in becoming president because if you look at how presidential elections have gone in the United States, you can't be evil, mean-spirited, condescending. You can't have a draconian immigration policy. You can't, side with white nationalists and then thank David Duke, but then all of a sudden you don't know who David Duke, a former Grand Wizard of the KKK, is because they endorsed you. You can't run for president, especially as a conservative, because there's this like moral standard that they used to uphold. And because Donald Trump just slashed and burned some well-respected Republicans that were on that debate stage with him, there's no way you become president. But lo and behold, it almost seems like the misogyny that exists in America is even more profound than the disgusting bravado and arrogance of Donald Trump. People just had something against Hillary Clinton. And so Trump wins. Now he realizes he has to run the country, but it's really clear now that he never had any interest in helping people and working with people and trying to get meaningful, long-lasting policy done. He essentially was in this business deal, because some of y'all said you wanted a businessman as president, with Republicans, that they would let him work with foreign leaders, collaborate with foreign leaders and dictators, whatever Donald Trump needed to do to get himself out of debt. If those Republicans in the House of Representatives and the US Senate got conservative judges on the bench, because that is the one thing, the one level of accomplishment, while it's a bad accomplishment, Donald Trump is going to have 3 selections on the US Supreme Court in 4 years, where Barack Obama only got 2 in 8 years. And so they allowed him to do all these things and say all these things with hardly a reprimand. I mean, there have been a few Republicans that have gotten a little bit of courage and decided to, call Donald Trump out, or even some of them that wanted to run for president against them, but those campaigns were quickly silenced and crushed. He once again is challenging the electoral process in the United States, and he has been promoting fraud and mail-in ballots don't count very, very consistently, but really he's been doing it since his election in 2016. There was a poll done, and this is what gives me great concern. There are a number of people in this country, in fact, a majority of people in this country, that believe there will be civil unrest during and after the November 3rd election, because regardless of what the results are, and that's the point I want to stress, it doesn't matter what the results are. Half of the country is going to be extremely upset. If Donald Trump gets reelected, I know how I'm going to feel. I know how a lot of you are going to feel in the event that Donald Trump loses. I know how his side is going to feel and how they are going to react. We're talking about people that would bring firearms to governors' mansions around the country because they were protesting mask and stay-at-home orders. If you just let that one incubate for a while, that people were willing to go and get their firearms because they have been given public health instructions to stop the spread of a pandemic that has killed, by the time it's all said and done, it will be 1/3 of a million people at the very least. And that's frightening, that they would get guns and protest for that. And imagine if their candidate loses to Joe Biden and the crazy socialist left. And this story appears in the USA Today. Bill Fry, who is age 61, is a Donald Trump supporter in rural Ohio who doesn't share much in common politically with Matt Edelman, who is 29, and a Biden supporter from Brooklyn, New York. Except this, they both worry about the legitimacy of the upcoming presidential election and fear an outcome that appears tainted, could heighten the nation's already frayed psyche, and potentially exacerbate violence in the streets. They're not alone. A new poll shows a large swath of Americans harbor deep reservations about the election results weeks before Election Day, are concerned about what actions people might resort to as a consequence. The YouGov poll of 1,999 registered voters found that nearly half, at 47%, disagree with the idea that the election is likely to be fair and honest. And that is slightly more than half, 51%, won't generally agree on who is legitimately elected president of the United States. The online poll was conducted October 1st and 2nd and has a margin of error of 2.56 percentage points. In addition, a YouGov poll of an additional 1,505 voters found that 56% said they expect to see, quote, an increase in violence as a result of the election. That question had a margin of error of 4.2 percentage points. So even with a margin of error of 4.2 percentage points, half of the people in this country are expecting violence. And the expectation is one thing. But of the people that are expecting violence, which would be, if you generalize this poll to the population, will be millions of people. We don't need millions of people to expect violence. We need a small percentage of those millions of people to cause violence, because that's usually what it is. It is the most extreme and fringe element in any group of people that cause all of the trouble, and I'm legitimately concerned about that. Not necessarily in Milwaukee, because Milwaukee is expected to be a blue city. Wisconsin very well could flip for Joe Biden. So I don't think this will be one of those places where that kind of violence will likely erupt, because people expect Wisconsin to go either way in any presidential election going all the way back to the year 2000. But in other parts of the country, we have seen it with George Floyd protests and Breonna Taylor protests that violence can jump off in a moment's notice anywhere in this nation. And I think that the level of violence exacerbates very, very quickly. Speaking of which, we will know this afternoon what Milwaukee District Attorney John Chisholm, what his decision is on whether to charge Joseph Mensah, an African-American police officer from Wauwatosa who has shot and killed 3 people, which is a lot, to say the least. And I think it may raise a couple of eyebrows that, well, Joseph Mensah is Black. So what's the deal with him? And I don't know and there's details of each and every case, but there's 2 stories. There's the stories that the police officers tell and the justification for using deadly force, but then there's oftentimes what really happened. And we've noticed that if the police officers have a similar theme in their stories, it's usually to exonerate them or to give courts and or juries something to go on so this officer doesn't get arrested, doesn't face any criminal charges. And it's not always exactly what happened. Even if you have body camera footage, and I don't know in the case of Jay Anderson, we have any body camera footage whatsoever, you have to take the officer's word over the dead person. And so we're nervous, we're on edge, and I live very, very close to Wauwatosa, and we hope that if there are any protests that they are peaceful, but you never know. The National Guard is on standby. But I think the interesting thing is Joseph Mensah is African-American. And does it make any sense? Because we always say, well, we need more Black police officers. Because if we have more Black police officers, not just in Milwaukee, but in surrounding areas, they will be able to better relate and better understand African Americans in which they will have police contact with. Not necessarily. And we cannot just look at everything in terms of race, that if you have African Americans in leadership positions, that the disparities will magically disappear. You know, sometimes if you have this culture, this code of conduct amongst police officers in which they know they can go rogue because they have a tremendous amount of protection, including qualified immunity, sometimes the Black cop can act in a way that still exhibits the disparities that we see that are maintained by a white criminal justice system, meaning that you have Black cops, and a lot of folks don't talk about this, Black cops that are on the job that want to do the right thing and want to report to higher command when their fellow officers are doing things incorrectly or breaking rules and not following policy and procedures. Those Black cops' lives are in jeopardy too, but we don't talk about that. We always say, well, we need more Black police officers. To be a Black cop, especially in these days and times, you have to not only risk your life by being out there on the street on a regular patrol or a routine traffic stop, which can kill you. You have to risk your safety because of your other colleagues that don't want you to be a whistleblower. And I can't tell you how many times I've talked to police officers, and we're going to talk to one on Friday. I'll get to that conversation in a minute, where they have seen their white police officers use excessive force and do things that don't follow their training, and those Black officers, wanting to be good stewards of their badge, file the report. They make the complaint. Fair enough. Chain of command handles it. Usually nothing happens. Sometimes there's discipline. If the white officer is disciplined because the Black cop went up to the chain of command to report the incident, that Black cop is now in danger, not necessarily of being shot by a fellow police officer, even though that can happen too. When that Black cop who blew the whistle, what we want them to do, they did what they were supposed to do. They were honoring their badge and being a decent, honest police officer and pointing out the inconsistencies that hurt police community relations, because we want our cops to do that. The next time that Black cop needs help, needs backup, needs a squad, or they have guns pointed at them and they need officers in the vicinity to respond, they don't respond. They leave those police officers who want to do the right thing to their own devices when they need backup. And that's fairly common practice. And so the particular thing about Joseph Mensah, and I think it stands as a very clear example, is just because you have Black cops doesn't mean that they're less trigger happy. In fact, they may be trying to cater favor with the white cops that act the exact same way. Because if you're Black, you're not always trusted. It's not even if you're on the police force. If you're Black anywhere in America, you're not trusted. Hell, if you're walking around a store, they may think you're shoplifting. If you fit any reasonable description, just about any cop who's looking for a suspect will pull you over, will ask for your ID, will cuff you and pat you down. And so what do you have to do as a Black cop to earn the respect of these white police officers that have this iron grip, fortified with law and qualified immunity. How do you get in their good graces? Kill Black people, be their assassin. And I think that's what we need to brace ourselves for. And I don't know if they even needed to do any kind of a press release to tell us what's going to happen with Officer Mensah. And I like to think that they went through every single case of the individuals that he shot and killed. And they went through all the evidence, and it was a painstaking process, and no stone was left unturned. Maybe that's why it took so long. But either way, just like with this presidential election, there are going to be a number of people who are very, 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 very unhappy with the result. Speaking of police, there is a search for the next City of Milwaukee police chief, and there are currently 6 finalists. 3 of them I know, 3 of them I do not. This morning I had a conversation with Mr. Pate. What is his name? What is his first name? Is it John Pate? I think it's John. He is 37 years old, and he is currently in law enforcement in Florida. He's got a very impressive resume, and actually we put the post in the forum Facebook group where you can get the details of his law enforcement background, his experience as a city manager. He is a honorably discharged U.S. veteran. He's 37 years old, which makes him a millennial. Yes, he is also African American. And the conversation that we had this morning was surrounding why he believes he's qualified to be the next police chief. But he said a couple of things that were really important to me that stuck out in our early morning conversation. And when I say early morning, that means I hadn't had my coffee yet. He's of a different age cohort, and the millennial generation, I think, has got a different, much more honest view of policing and law enforcement just because of their generation than older generations do. So there's that. Really important. He's a millennial. He also is not from Milwaukee. And we have tried and tried and tried with quote unquote homegrown talent or promoting people from within the Milwaukee Police Department. And then when we went out and found Chief Ed Flynn, who was from Springfield, Massachusetts, who was an outsider, who didn't have these allegiances and alliances with other Milwaukee police officers. He literally was coming from a different part of the country to be the chief of police here. But where we fell short with Ed Flynn is we failed to recognize Milwaukee was not a place in which he was willing to call home. He wanted to come here, manipulate some data, make it look like crime was going down under his leadership, and then go to a much larger city to be the chief somewhere else. We didn't recognize that with Ed Flynn. That he had no real interest in the long-term policing administration of the city of Milwaukee. He had no real interest long-term as someone who had planned to call Milwaukee home. So yes, we did get someone, we tried that, getting someone from somewhere else who doesn't have these allegiances and these alliances, especially with the union and rank and file officers, some of whom are very corrupt. So we got Ed Flynn. Ed Flynn turned out to be a dud as well. But I think that we have extended ourselves too far in trying to offer police chief positions to homegrown Milwaukee cops. And I'm not saying that there aren't individuals within that department that wouldn't be a good chief. I'm sure they are. But if they've been on the force for 10, 15, 20 years, they have some alliances and some allegiances that go back to supporting that blue line and that code of silence amongst police officers. Policing has to be looked at entirely different in the city of Milwaukee. Who we choose to lead this department in a summer full of turmoil and upheaval, and there could be more of that to come. Someone who can start fresh, who doesn't have baggage, who doesn't have these political affiliations because they've been in the city for their entire life. Because here's the thing about the city of Milwaukee. If you've been here for more than 15 minutes, you've got friends on one side or the other. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. And so I'm going to interview Mr. Pate on Friday morning at 9:30. We're going to do a Zoom call, and we're going to ask him the questions. And so what I appreciate about him is that he reached out to you guys because he posted his information and the fact that he was a candidate, a finalist for the chief of police. He didn't reach out to me. He knows the individuals that are associated with this particular Facebook group, the forum Facebook group. And so he wanted to talk to you guys. And because he wants to talk to you guys, I'm going to talk to him. So I'm looking forward to that conversation. I'd imagine some of the other finalists may want to speak to you as well, but all I can say is since the finalists have been named and alerted, none of them have reached out. It doesn't mean that they won't. It just means that they haven't. And here's the thing: if someone who has an interest in wanting to connect with you all, members of this group, very politically active, better than 3,000 members, 90+% are from the city of Milwaukee, all very engaged and active and very smart. And also people that are a member of the forum Facebook group, very attractive people. I don't know how you guys do it, but you're all very, very handsome and beautiful people. But if there are other people that want to talk to you, I will do my best to try and accommodate them. I want to get to Trump's erratic behavior because it isn't something we should just easily dismiss as, oh, that's just Trump and he is crazy. I think we sometimes forget the level of responsibility that he has to keep this nation safe. And if he makes erratic decisions, that can affect all of us. And so I was alerted to a tweet storm that he went on, I think, late last evening. And every now and again, when he says something that rises to the level of my concern, which isn't very often, I'll share one of his tweets with you all, but I try to stay away from that because I think we minimize the severity of just how mentally sick and inept he is. So it's easy to laugh at him, but if we laugh at him, we also are laughing at ourselves because when this story is written, and I don't even know what you call the story of 2020. It probably will go back to 2016 because we will see an evolution of this. And maybe it goes back to the year 2010. Barack Obama gets elected in 2008. 2010 was the next midterm election that we had. And that's when we saw the birth of the Tea Party, which got more and more extreme. And I think went into QAnon and then the Proud Boys and the resurgence of these white nationalist groups and organizations, which are organizing again to a level in which they are a serious and significant threat to national security. There was this evolution that took place right under our noses. And the internet helped it solidify and evolve because these people that otherwise may not have any contact with each other if they live in Seattle, Washington, or if they live in Chicago, Illinois, or Augusta, Georgia, or if they live in Holton, Maine, or if they live in Dallas, Texas, Houston, Texas, Bismarck, North Dakota, all of these people from all of these places that otherwise would never have any contact, can never be able to share ideas, can join a social media group and communicate and plan and raise money and start their own chapters that are funded, especially through this thing called crowdfunding, which has just provided money to any and every cause. People will start a crowdfunding site to get breast implants. I mean, they'll also do it because they're homeless and they lost everything in a fire. But the way that people can collectively pool their money, even for some of the most extreme cases and causes, is staggering. So you have these groups that were scattered all about the country that can organize centrally and they can raise money and they can wreak havoc on the system. And so all of this has come to a head, and then Donald Trump taking advantage of the anxieties and fears, and let's just call it what it is, the racist sentiments of people that are not ready for the demographic shifts in America. America is becoming more Black and more brown, more Asian, more Latino, more African American than ever has been before. And you can just look at the demographics of the voters in this election, and that shows you that there is more of that to come, and that incites a level of fear in people. And we need to take some responsibility for that. And I say we, like not us as individuals, but demographers have been telling us for a full generation the population trend in America and what we failed to do. And this gets at the heart of this whole white supremacy thing, because calling an individual white person a racist or a white supremacist misses the point, because they're going to tell you that they didn't get everything they wanted because they're white. They're going to tell you that their life has been hard and they're white and they don't have any privilege. What they often fail to realize, because we as Americans have failed to teach them, is that we're not saying your life is not going to be hard because you're white. We're saying that your skin color is not going to be a reason why your life is more difficult. People have to struggle with mental illness, they struggle with depression, they struggle with financial troubles, they struggle with, you name it, relationships and marriages. People struggle with all of that. And that goes with just being a human being. But when you add race on top of all of those other maladies that someone can experience, it just makes life tougher. But when we get to the heart of it, when we recognize that this was going to be at some point in time, and they kept moving the goalpost of when we would be a majority minority country, just like they moved the goalpost on the major effects of climate change. We thought it was going to be way 100 years in the future. It's like 10 years ago. Or whenever Al Gore came out with he won an Oscar for the Inconvenient Truth. He actually did two of them. The first one was really good, really powerful and scary. The second one kind of sucked, but he was sounding the alarm about climate change. And Al Gore had been talking about climate change since the 80s, but nobody listened to him. I wonder where Al Gore is these days. He probably should be out there promoting Biden. Anyways, how we failed is that we didn't take our system of public education, which is just as broken as every other system in America. I want you guys to understand that I know you love teachers and teachers are struggling, and now the teachers are actually parents. But as much as we love our system of public education, they failed to instruct America's students on the civics lessons that they would need, because when they grew up and when their children come of age, they would be living in an America with a larger number of people who have been marginalized, disrespected, and dehumanized. And when you're not teaching Americans like, no, these are the contributions of all of these different races and cultures and religions. And one day you're going to be sharing space with them. They're going to live in your apartment building. They may rent your duplex. They may be sitting next to you in your cubicle at work. So let's learn who these people are and let's turn the page of history, because how this country started, worse than terrible, but we have evolved slowly but surely to accommodate much more people. There has been a path to progress. There's been some legislation. There's been a change in attitudes. We failed to instruct America's children so they could be well-rounded adults that understand the people in their country that are here now and the people that are yet to come. We failed to do that. That system has created a lot of what we see, because and we always talk about training. Oh, we need more training. We got to train the police officers, which cops know who to shoot and who not to shoot. They know who they're afraid of subjectively and who they're not afraid of subjectively. So I call foul on that whole training thing. But when you talk about training, there's some kind of racial sensitivity training that you can give America, and Americans need all of this training. You got to train them. You're talking about education. And we had the children, didn't we? We have them when they're enrolled in school, whether it's parochial or public. You have the attention of children from kindergarten or sometimes pre-K until they graduate from high school. You can make it a requirement that they have a certain number of units and chapters and courses of study in particular disciplines that will make them much better equipped either for the world of work, the world of additional education, higher education, or a world of diversity. And sometimes all three. We didn't do that. Now is not the time to be hammering on teachers because they're just instruments in the larger scheme of things. But there is an industry where it's 80% white women. And in some cases, you have 80 and 90% children of color, which means parents of color, meaning that some of these white teachers that mean well and they want to help these students, especially if they do the noble thing of going and working in underprivileged and underserved neighborhoods, those teachers and their culture is going to come in conflict to the children that they see, the culture that those children bring to this classroom that is ruled by this white woman, but also going to come in conflict with the parents of that children. The parents of those children, I should say. You can't have a thorough education system when you're going to have so much racial and social conflict, because I don't know how much racial sensitivity training these teachers are given when they're in college. And maybe they have some, maybe they had a unit or two on something civil rights, but it does not prepare them for a culture that that has not been ingrained in them. because there's a lot of suburban people that want to come to the city of Milwaukee for everything, for fun, for food, for entertainment, also for jobs. But when they come here to our home, you're not just coming to get a paycheck. You're either a part of this culture and you're going to help it thrive and flourish, or you're going to tear it down. And because white women have this real particular, and I don't want to, I'm not painting with a broad brush here, but I know that there's an industry that is unionized, that is 80% white women, and is the teachers in our public schools, and they have their own attitudes and biases. And some of them are as colorblind as I guess you can get. And they just love all children. Some of them feel sorry for Black children, because I know an awful lot of public school teachers of all different races and cultures. And some of them feel so sorry for the children that they see, because if you come from a privileged background and you went to University of Wisconsin-Madison, you got a great degree in teaching or some other really high performing, college and university, and you've never really experienced and understood Black and brown culture, and then you see what happens and the baggage these children come to school with and the emotional trauma that these children are dealing with in their communities. Some of these teachers that have lived these privileged lifestyles are just blown away. Some of them go home in tears, and they'll tell you how much money they spend to buy coats and hats for these children, and for that, they'll sneak additional food out of the lunchroom because they know that there are children that are going to go home and there's no food in the refrigerator. These teachers will tell you that. And then sometimes they have this level of sympathy where they want to remove these children from the neighborhoods and the communities and from their homes, because these teachers believe that these kids can have a better life. And then you have this other kind of deep, dark, sinister racism that wants to remove Black children from the Black family, because they believe in their myopic view of how you raise children based upon their culture, which is devoid of Blackness, that no, I can take better care of these children. And I would ask you this, and maybe it's a rhetorical question: how many Black families adopt white children? Do you know any? If you know some, I'd love to interview them. Do you know of any Black couples? Maybe they're infertile and they adopt children, and they adopt white kids. Ever seen a Black mother and father with their adopted white children ever? You got a Supreme Court nominee, Amy Coney Barrett, and she prides herself on adopting Black children from Haiti, that missionary work where the Blacks are, and it's subconscious, or I don't know, maybe it's overt, maybe it's sublime, maybe it isn't. Where Blacks and Black culture are just savage. So if we do our missionary work, and if we shove down their throats the mission of Jesus Christ, we can take these Blacks out of their savage, second-class citizen, dehumanizing ways and make them good, God-fearing white people, except for the fact that they have this Black skin. That is a real attitude. And I got to know a missionary type many, many years ago, and she would go down to Jamaica. And I thought she was going to Jamaica because it was a vacation. No. She was bringing the word of Christ. And the number of times she tried to adopt and bring back the Black children from those Jamaican villages to the United States because she felt so sorry for them, failing to realize it was white power and white supremacy that has colonized the island of Jamaica and the whole goddamn Caribbean, that has made Black life so pitiful. They think they can make it better for Black people, so they adopt our children. And I guess that could be a longer conversation, because some children are in some very bad situations. They are. And those children sometimes would get a break from their bad situations if they were able to go back to school, because school was a break from the family. And there's dysfunctional families of all cultures. Let me be abundantly clear about that. But those children who had a lot of trouble at home, they're now stuck at home and supposed to be educated by their parents who were the cause of the problem. However, I digress. But taking Black children out of their Black families and their Black communities and putting them somewhere else where they never will fit in. They think they're going to fit in. They're being raised and indoctrinated to believe they're like everybody else, but the world is not colorblind. And what you eventually do when you remove those Black children from their Black families and Black communities and Black neighborhoods, and they are adopted by white people, is those Black children will either consciously or subconsciously begin to look at people that share their same skin color and common ancestry as the enemy. Because just being surrounded by white people and white families and white traditions is somewhat anti-Black. Pro-Black is loving your history, your culture, respecting your ancestors, and knowing that we all can be a better society with the inclusion of Black people. Pro-white is racism. There's no middle ground. Pro-Black means I want my people to have every opportunity. I want my people to be able to get flown on a helicopter if they get the Rona and get all the best medical treatment in the world. Being pro-Black says I want that for my people. Being pro-white means I want that for white people, but not for Black or brown or Muslim or Jew, etc. Also, let's not forget, they hate the Jews too, and the Jews know it. They know. Lots to discuss. So glad you guys are with me every day on this very interesting and sometimes unpredictable ride. Eileen Seeger, good morning, Eileen. I know one couple, Black father, white mother, from my CrossFit gym that adopted a white baby. That's kind of, I mean, a Black Andre and Shaquita that adopted little Winston or little Daryl. Like, I want an example of that, but I don't know if we'll find any. Thank you to Stephanie Findley, the chair of the City of Milwaukee Election Commission, that joined us this morning. The debate, the vice presidential debate, is tonight. Watch it. On Friday, we're going to be talking to John Pace, who is a finalist candidate for chief of police for the city of Milwaukee. Looking forward to that conversation. And as always, guys, thank you for your participation. And it's always a joy to talk to you. Remember, subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/theforum2com. On our website is theforum2.com. You guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you tomorrow.